Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Matteo Stafari. I am the YP chair in the Electric and Electrical Insulation Society. We have been doing this YP lunch-on to motivate and encourage young professionals to join our group. And this is the second time we are hosting this event, and thank you so much for joining us. We have two speakers this year, Jacques Lewiner, who is a Whitehead lecturer this year, and Keith Nielsen, the Dakin Award, and he was also the Whitehead lecturer in 1993, exactly 30 years ago. So I will invite both of them to come here, and it will be moderated by my IEEE YP Secretary, Alan Anderson. I welcome both of them.
All right, as you have to take a seat, I'm Alan Anderson. I'm the secretary in the SYP organization, and happy to have this opportunity again. And I'll also take this opportunity to put in a plug for the YP column at the Electrical Insulation, or the Electrical Insulation magazine. If you're interested in being featured, please send me an email. If you I'll give you my email if you come and talk to me, or it's also been shown in various slides. So this is supposed to be an open discussion. We'll give the speakers an opportunity to introduce themselves, but then hopefully we can start having a back and forth conversation. So Jack and Keith, if you'd like to introduce yourself. There's a mic right here. You can take turns.
Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. You want me to start?
Go for it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Keith Nelson. My history is that I've held appointments both in industry and in academia on both sides of the Atlantic. And I would have to say that I believe that the industrial appointments helped me as a university professor, and the corollary is always true. It's also true. The analytical discipline of academic life helps in industry. So that's my background. I'm now a consultant, currently retired from the university, and enjoying life.
Well, you made it very short for...
Certainly a good example.
Well, I was a solid-state physicist at the beginning when I made my PhD, and I started a laboratory in Paris, in an old place where the equipment was dating from World War II mainly. So there was a tremendous opportunity for a young person wanting to build up something. So as I told you this morning, we worked on ultrasonics. That was a specialty of the laboratory. And then we went to solid-state physics, and accidentally we entered the field of electrets. As I told you, it was a pure accident. We didn't expect that. We believed we had invented a fantastic new material until we found out that it had been discovered almost a century before. But as I told you, we could use new materials. I will come back later on that. We saw many opportunities. In life, there is hard work. You cannot do without hard work. And there is opportunities. Sometimes it's not the way you intended to go, but you see there is something possible. So with the electret, we decided to try, to move, and that's how we started in my laboratory to take patents. In France, tradition of patent was not strong, especially in the university, but we tried. And our school had a privilege, which is still possible, but not so much. If a researcher wanted to take the risk to apply for the patent at his own name, he was allowed to do it at his own cost. It means the university did not oblige, of course, the researcher to take patent and pay for them, but if they wanted to take the risks, they were allowed. And you may ask me, what was the return to the university? I had explained that many times. It was big. But the consequence of that, when you are a young researcher, you are paid as a young researcher, which means not much in France, maybe somewhere similar. And we were spending money. Every time I was going home, my young wife was worried and asking me, did you take any new patent? Because she was worried that the money of the family would disappear. Of course, when you do that, you are strongly motivated for the patent to come out, because it's you are going to, that will be one message. When you study something, try to realize it. Don't stay only in the theory. Try to do something practical, something industrial out of your work. Maybe you have to do it with other people. As I told you this morning, I killed a new company in a very short time because I did not understand the importance of the team. But try. My feeling is you must try.
Thank you. So I have a question for, go ahead.
But be careful, I have a whole load of patents and none of them are making money for anybody.
Very good. I'll let you share.
Since I got a reprimand for being too short, let me also add, for my own career, the early days in the 20th century, I was involved with dielectrics work. I've been involved with dielectrics work for over 50 years, and most of it was aimed at the power plant apparatus for historical reasons. Since the year 2000, I have been almost entirely involved with nanodielectrics. So I switched horses, but still in the dielectrics area, obviously. And if you're interested in that, I'll be talking about that on Wednesday.
So a question for the both of you. Looking back, I'd like you to think about your first time you went to CEIDP. When was that, and what's your earliest recollection of CEIDP? And also looking forward, where do you see the field of dielectrics going in the next 5 to 10 years?
My first CEIDP was in 1976. And my first, in those days, this conference was held almost exclusively in the Poconos, which is a mountainous or hilly area just north of here. And we moved from there for a number of reasons which we can discuss, but nearly every year it was held in the Poconos, and the October date results from the fact that it was peak leaf season in the Poconos at that time, so that not only you get to go to a conference, but you saw all the color. My other recollection about this meeting at that time was that it wasn't a club for academics so much as there was a large industrial participation, which we don't have today. With your tolerance, Mr. Chairman, can I just ask for a show of hands for anybody who is coming from industry? 1, 2, 3. Great. 4, 5. Oh, okay, there's a sprinkling. That's fine. Because in those days, you know, it was GE and Westinghouse and McGraw-Edison, and they were all sitting there out there, and the academics were in a minority, I think.
Well, same thing for me. It was in the Pocono. I have very good memories from the place there. Maybe I had one before in Miami in 1972. Were you there? That was the Electrochemical Society. You are right. Fortunately, Raymond is very good with history. He does not.
Very good. So what do you see looking forward in the next 5 or 10 years? What are we going to be talking about at CEIDP?
Well, certainly cables. Electrification is sure to come because of greening of the planet. We have to. Electricity is a fantastic vector. It transports energy. There is no pollution, no CO2, no heating, a little bit in the wires, but no. It's an ideal way to transport energy. And as you know, consumption is not necessarily where it is produced, especially with renewable energies. So if you look solar, there are places in the world where there is a lot of sun and places where there is not so much. So it will be necessary to transport from one place to the other one. Wind, exactly the same. I mentioned this morning Germany. It's very typical of what may happen in the world. There is the north part with a lot of wind energy, renewable, and consumption is on the south. So, no mystery. There have been various links which have been built, very powerful, 1 gigawatt, more than 1 gigawatt, hundreds of kilometers. So, with the need to greener the world, this will increase.
I'm being asked where dielectrics is going in the next few years. I think I would have to say, having been in the nanodielectrics business right from the start, that it's still got a long way to run. I think there's still a lot more we need to do to realize its full potential, so I would certainly put that on my list. I also see, particularly in this country, a emphasis on things medical, and so I see a lot of potential for biodielectrics applications in various ways, for sensors and for procedures and things like that. So I see that as a burgeoning area. And I think there is always the issue of dielectrics in support of the semiconductor industry. And in the area where we are here, there is a big move by the governor of New York to have a semiconductor corridor, rather like the Californian situation. And so I see a lot of dielectric work needed there. but obviously industry needs to buy into that, and that's why I'm asking how many industrialists were here.
All right, thank you. I want to see what questions we have from the participants here. I think Mateos has a microphone, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead and raise your hand. I think we've got a question over there. Oh.
Thank you, and I'm glad that we have you here. So I want to ask a question about a fact, or maybe not a fact, that people told me when I started as a high voltage engineer with dielectrics, that this field is stagnating, and most of the things have been said about it, that there's not going to be any more progress on that. I actually oppose to that, but wanted to know your thoughts about it.
I'm not sure that it's stagnating so much as it's regarded as mature. You talk to people about dielectrics and they see you know, oil and paper and the things that we were dealing with 50 years ago. They don't see the modern side of dielectrics work. So I think we probably have to do more education, and I think we also have to, let me say again, have industry step up to the plate.
Yes, I agree. If you take the energy transportation, it is mature, but not so mature. Of course, impregnated paper will be old days, but you still have plenty of cables. Sometimes I have a colleague at the university who tells me, I have a problem in my laboratory, there is oil leaking from a cable. And he's absolutely amazed, how could oil come out of a cable? But that's old cables. So situation is changing. Now polymers are extensively used. So this field is old, but is in a big renewal. Now, dielectrics, as we said, can be used in many other things which are not yet born. Medical sensors were just quoted, microfluidics, encapsulation, all those subjects are still at the laboratory stage. Some start to be a very large TV manufacturer is about to launch displays with encapsulation in dielectric materials, for instance. So it's really how will they compete with competing technologies? That's a question. Of course, we know that various technologies move ahead. In this case, it is connected to quantum dots. You know, in the display business, quantum dots are more and more used because of the adjustable wavelengths that they can emit. So, but now think of encapsulating quantum dots in some sphere or small capsule, very small container, and combining the dielectric property of the encapsulation with what is inside. That's an example. Other examples with genome, more and more there is a need for single cell analysis in biology because that will bring information on how, if it's a cancer cell, for instance, how will it reproduce, how will it grow, what environment is good, what environment is not good. That will be possible also by encapsulation the the cell in a container which will need very special properties. So now there is a full range of physico-chemical properties which will be implied in such directions.
Thank you. Let's see, if you have any other, just feel free to raise your hand and we'll get you the mic. All right, we've got one there.
Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Nice, thank you for being here too for us. From your experience, you have seen many careers developing. Could you give an outlook or a variety how for a young professional a career could develop? Like some are following this research-focused trade, some are going back and forth in industry. It's, as a young professional or researcher, it's always nice to have some role models or some strategies that worked quite nicely in your experience.
So
I'm sorry, I didn't get everything.
So can you repeat the first part of the question again? I think it's asking about careers, right?
Yeah, well, I was asking, you witnessed a lot of people having careers in your great deal of experience. Could you give us some examples from your side that worked out quite nicely or that could be a role model?
Yeah. I think role models, I'm going to read into that, role models, good and bad, or just good?
I think gone are the days when academics can set their own problems and solve them. I think that as far as careers are concerned, you've got to do work which has an industrial outlook. I'm harping again on outlook. I was contemplating on the session we had this morning. I found a lot of that quite interesting, but I couldn't help wondering who was funding it. And in most cases we weren't told. But, you know, you ask about research direction, and I think that our chairman is going to ask us a little while about more than that, which way do we want to go? And the other way of putting that is, how are we going to get it funded? You have to ask yourself that. And I think that if you want to get it funded, then it either has to be truly unique, what you're doing, truly unique. And if I'm honest, I haven't very often done any truly unique work, and I don't suppose most other people have. So if it's not truly unique, then it has to have an application, or it has to be directly sponsored by a sponsor. And sponsors will put up money for fundamental work, but they will seldom put up money just for modeling using commercial software without any particular outlet. So you ask about careers. I think you want to formulate your career on the basis of where you're going, not what you're researching now.
Well, your question is a question that many of my students, of course, have asked me. I have a first answer, which is very strong. Do what you like. Don't care of choosing a job because it's better paid at time zero. Don't use the level you are paid as a reference to start. What you have to do is what you like. If you like what you do, you have pleasure to work, and you will be good. If you do something because you believe it will be paid more, that's a very bad choice. So my first recommendation, do what you like. You must be happy going to work. You must not go to work thinking, I'll be paid a little bit more than my friend. No, that will be awful. So do what you like. Now, I think starting with a PhD is very good. When you do a PhD, it seems to be very specialized, but when you do a PhD, you have to look plenty other things. So you don't realize that you get a very broad culture. Everybody tells you, oh, you have studied something very narrow. No, it's not true, because you learn a lot. And I will tell you more. You will know much more than you believe. In other words, don't compare yourself to somebody who is very famous. Compare yourself to the average population. You know much, much more. So if you are open to what you see, then you can have very inventive ideas. Because very often, inventive ideas come at the mixture of different cultures. I will give you an example. I like examples because I was a solid-state physicist. When I was going to hotel, I did that sometimes, I was given a key, mechanical key. I was very surprised of the level of security of a key. I would go to a duplication shop, they would make me another key. So I was amazed. We are at an age, electronic was getting smaller, less consumption. And for my thesis, I had made electronics, I had used equipment. I thought we are, so I started to, as a hobby, beside my solid-state work, to look at locks. I could open any lock very quickly because there are weak points necessarily in any device. You don't want the other one to come in. So I decided to make some improvements at the beginning, mechanical, then mixing electronic and mechanical. I patented locks. What would be that? He's a physicist, he is working in a research laboratory, he's patenting them. My locks were used once the competition, when Disney came to Europe, we equipped Euro Disney, the park and the hotels. Why? Because we had understood that there was an intersection between the mechanical industry, which had 2,000 years, roughly speaking, and the electronic industry, which was new. Those give very strong opportunity. So, making a PhD is good. You learn a lot. Of course, you are specialized. In your field, you must be at the top, but you learn a lot of things.
Jacques says he can open any lock. Your question was on careers. I think you make a good burglar.
Then don't worry of the career. If you like what you do, you will be good, and you will move up either in a structure or by yourself. And if you authorize me, I'll go one step further. If at a certain time you think all those companies are idiots, they don't understand how interesting is my innovation, make a startup, and then do the innovation yourself. So now you will be very busy, you will not sleep well at night because of the problem, but then you have your own, you drive your own career. So I strongly support young people who take the risk to launch a startup. It's very risky, but it's very exciting.
Thank you.
Let me also add to your question. I personally am a great believer in experience in all its forms. As a young man, I did what was known in those days as a graduate apprenticeship in industry. In other words, the company sent me around all their departments, getting my feet wet in all sorts of other things. And at the time, I was pretty bored, and I really thought that that was a waste of my time. I really did. But subsequently, in subsequent years, I have been surprised how much rubbed off from that experience that I have found very useful indeed. I mean, not just technical things, but union relations, all sorts of things like that you wouldn't really think was important unless you were, looking out for it. So I think anything you can do to get experience, not just necessarily in the job market, but in your private personal life as well.
Very good. All right. We have other questions. Okay, we've got a few.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here. I'd like to ask that the years you have working? A lot of people last, maybe in the beginning, it was a lot of companies were attending. You have is that more of the researchers from the institute and also from the universities are participating in this conference. Is there anything that has been included in the conference which can help to encourage more students or more researchers from the institutions or research centers or universities are coming? Number one. Second question, if there anything added from the last few years, or maybe 10, 20 years, that only included, not only included dielectric or insulation materials, or anything other thinking related to other materials to include in this conference? Third question.
Okay, let's start with the first question.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
So the first question, if I understood right, was about how do we get young people involved? Is that roughly what, in industry? How do we get young people involved in industry? So if you're coming from academia, how do you attract young people into industry?
I think one of the ways you could do it would do while you were at university to do an internship of some sort, so as to learn some of the tricks of the trade and learn a lot of the things that I did on an apprenticeship. I think that would be certainly a first move if you want to a career in industry. But in the current climate in this country, industry are hiring. I don't think you have a job, the difficulty getting a job.
Yes, I agree completely. The first simple way is with internship. You spend 6 months in a company, you learn on the practice. So I don't know in many countries, but in France, for instance, we have a system where you can have a PhD made between a laboratory, a research laboratory, and a company. So this is excellent also, because for the student it's very good because he has a better salary than if he were entirely academic, but he is located in the laboratory, but he spends time in the industry. So he sees the theoretical part of his subject and the practical part of his project with the environment, which is unions and things that are not immediately visible in a research laboratory.
And I think the second part of your question was, are there things that should be at CEIDP that aren't yet? Is that right? Yeah. Okay. What is at CEIDP, or what is not at CEIDP that probably should be, as far as things to research or topics that we should? What topics are not currently covered that probably should be?
That's a good question because it's projected to the future. Well, that's a good question. I think we have mentioned a few directions, for instance, medical sensors, for sure. We are not yet at the end of sensors. Piezoelectricity and pyroelectricity led to huge amount of applications, huge. Who would have said some years ago that pyroelectric detectors would be in every room in a house for a ridiculous price? So the question, what are tomorrow's sensors that we should work on today? So I think putting piezoelectricity and pyro a little bit is a direction where there will be development, for sure. Biology, also, we mentioned, that's
on Wednesday, we will have a series of 8 perspective lectures at the occasion of the centennial, and I hope that this will become a constant fixture of CEIDP. There we will ask younger colleagues who have just reached the top of their career, so to speak, to foresee how their specialty will be developed in the next 20, 30, 40 years. So come on Wednesday, you will see some directions. For example, soft robotics will be there, soft sensors, soft actuators, which are based on dielectric polymers and on principles of dielectric materials. We will also hear about future of dielectrics in transportation, in ground transportation, transportation on ships, airplanes, and even in space. So this is a start. We could not find people for all the directions that might come up. Actually, semiconductor industry was mentioned. That's something where we have to look into. But this year we have nobody to look into this, so that's something for the future. But I think this is a way to go to open up the community with these perspectives into the future by competent people whom we invite to present this to us.
I think he's had
an example of a prospective subject where we could have a speaker, for instance, periodic structures, macroscopic periodic structures. We know they have fantastic properties, speed is not the same. So if we make structures with different periodicity and things like that, it leads to fantastic effects. And they will start to come at the industrial level very soon. Already you see proposition of preliminary deliveries of equipment which include such amazing lenses, for instance, periodic structures. They are. So somebody who would speak on that would be a good, there are a few points like that where future, I spoke this morning of superconducting cables. Unfortunately, temperature is still low. Unfortunately, liquid nitrogen is cold. But you realize that dielectric materials for such cables cannot be exactly the same as for room temperature cables, because when you cool down, dilatation, fracturation, plenty of problems, which are not directly connected to the dielectric part of the material, but to its global environment.
All right. Let's see, Keith, I think you had a question, or you had a comment that got abbreviated. We can go on.
Well, all I was going to say is it's a practical matter with CEIDP. If you make a call for papers and you get a bunch of papers in, you've got to sort them into sessions, and so to some extent, it's the delegates or the potential delegates that determine what sessions you need, rather than us. It's no use saying, well, we're going to have a session on this. If you don't get any papers, you can't fill it.
All right. And so, Keith, I've got a question specifically for you. So, in the past years, you've held numerous IEEE appointments, including presidency of the Dielectrics and Electrical Installation Society, and also the CEIDP chair. What advice do you have for young professionals who aspire to achieve leadership roles in IEEE and contribute to the growth of their fields?
Well, let me harp on the same story as I had before. I believe in experience. If you want to have a leadership role, you've got to start at the bottom and work your way up. DEIS is an extremely good vehicle for that, but there is one word of warning. If you get on committees, you really need to contribute. In my time, I've read lots of resumes of candidates for jobs and other things, and I'm very wary when I see a whole list of things. I'm on a member of this committee and on that committee, on that committee, and that committee. Unless they're chairs of those committees, they're just building resumes by having lines that they can get counted. You really have to contribute in those roles. But DEIS is a good start because it's a fairly small society. It's constantly looking for people who are prepared to contribute in the area of technical committees, in the area of publications, in all the things that it does. It's a volunteer organization. Nobody is paid. So that's a good place to start. And having started there, you can obviously build your way up. We're very pleased to see some of the YPs on ADCOM, which is the administrative committee that rules this organization. But one word of warning, and then from there, I mean, maybe the chairman doesn't know, but I'm also an ex-IEEE director. In other words, the umbrella organization under which we sit. I have been on their board. And there you have a slight problem because the divisional directors are elected, not appointed. In other words, if your name goes up, then you have to be voted on. You're voted on by the division. And DEIS is in Division 2, which contains also Power Electronics Society and the Industrial Applications Society that have tens of thousands of members as opposed to the 2,000 that we have, or a little less now, I think. So your chances of getting elected when the people that are casting their votes don't know you because they're from a larger society are fairly slim. So from that point of view, DEIS is not a good vehicle, but it is a good vehicle to get experience. And I think that's the way to start.
Right, Jacques, a question for you is, you mentioned about the importance of startups. And with your extensive experience in technology transfer, what advice do you have for the young professionals who are interested in creating a startup? And if, okay, I want to do a startup, what should I know?
That's a very interesting question. First answer, you must have an idea. You don't create a startup to create a startup. You have an idea, you have the feeling it's not realized, so you decide to do it. I will give you an example. So you have an idea, now build up a team. It does not have to be big, but don't do it alone. It's impossible alone because psychologically you have many downs. There are some ups, very happy, but many downs. So when you are alone, it's difficult. Your companion, your girlfriend, your boyfriend is going to leave you because you spent all your time working. So you have to have somebody around you which is in the team. That's very important. Then, why are you in a startup going to win against a big company who is already more or less in the field? There is one reason: you take decisions quickly. A big company is very slow in decision-taking because your boss is going to make a budget, he's going to present the budget to his boss, and his boss is going to present, and sometime it will be lost. So you have to start again. In a small company, you can react, which means you take risk. By definition, doing something new is taking risk. So you have to accept in your head that it may fail. You work for it to succeed, but you are not going to kill yourself because it didn't work. I will give you an example, so not to make it theoretical. With one of my students, we were surprised. In France, we had developed internet through ADSL, asymmetric flux going in back. To connect ADSL in your home, you bought a modem from a manufacturer. If you had more than one computer, you bought a router. If you were afraid of intrusions, you bought a firewall. And eventually, you bought a radio connection to avoid cables. So you arrived at your home, you put all those like you would do with a hi-fi chain. Preamplifier, amplifier, filter, loudspeaker. The big difference was hi-fi chain always worked. When you were building an internet chain, it never worked because the bit output of one element was not compatible with the input bit of the next one. Of course, you could fix it. It was complex. So with my student, we had a stupid idea. We decided we are going to put all those elements in one box. There will be only one case, one button, switch on, minimal number. We spoke with some companies, that's a crazy idea. We decided to do it. So we made the company. We almost went bankrupt a few times because nobody wanted it. Big. We were selling it in a big distribution shop in France called Fnac, very big. Nobody bought it. So we understood we must not sell to the user, we must sell to the telecom operator, because he is the one who wants to attract the traffic to him. So we went to see a big French operator, say, maybe our labs will come out. Of course, you are against the syndrome, not invented here. Don't go to big labs, don't go in big companies to labs to help you, because you are competitors. Culturally, you believe your natural interlocutor are the research department of the company. The answer is no. Because why would they support your project and not theirs? So go and see the marketing people. The people who sell, they say, your product is very nice, I can sell a lot. They will support. We didn't have any support, so we decided we built it and we'll try to do it ourselves. And we were almost out of cash. We were lucky because another company, a big one, but a new one, had the same idea, but they were operators. So not only they made the product, but they came out. And for those who know a French company, it was free, Iliad. And the next day, they came out, I don't remember what day, the next day, all the companies which had told us, we will call you when we need you, they called. And we said we cannot manage production of such quantities. They say, we will help you, we are in a hurry. In 2 years, we became #1 of box in Europe, with millions of units. So I tell you this story to show you that don't say it's not possible. It will be difficult, but it will be, finally, if you are lucky, sometimes it's not, it will be possible. And this is a very strong example. We had, against us, we had Sony, we had in Germany, Siemens, we had in the United States, Microsoft was doing a box themselves. We beat them all, and one of them bought us.
Very good. All right, I think we're getting close to the end, so I'd like to ask each of you if you had any other parting remarks that you'd like to give to the young professionals, that you're welcome to do so.
Well, one remark, very important, if you have the intention to launch a company, you must take patents. You cannot develop a technical company. If it's software, it's different. But if it's with products, you need patents. Otherwise, you are going to kill yourself to make up a market, a product, and then anybody can copy it. So it would be very unfair, very against ethics. So take patents to protect your invention.
You gave me a list of things that you thought you were going to ask me, and there's something you haven't mentioned that is on my list, and since I've done my homework, I'll talk about it.
Thank you.
You asked about writing grant proposals.
Yes.
You're looking at what I would call a technical prostitute, in the sense that I tend to go where I think the money is. There is there was, about 30 years ago, a big problem in the US and in Japan with streaming electrification in transformers. And since I was in liquids at that time, I said to myself, well, okay, there's an industrial problem here. Let's put something together to solve it, which is what we did. And we got several grants quite quickly because there was an obvious need. But the other thing that I would advise is that very often you will find something that you want to do, but you don't necessarily have all the ducks in line. And so I would strongly suggest that you look around for partners. You may find that there's another university that's got somebody who will fill in the gap for you. Or you may have somebody who has a facility that you need to solve this problem. And so I think there are lots of ways to go which rely on a little bit of innovation. And let me get back to what I said before. You're not going to be very successful by just simply iterating on what you're doing at present. You really need to do something which is, dare I say, sexy. I mean, for example, some of you in the room may know Gary Stevens, who is, in the last few years, has made his reputation on developing self-healing dielectrics. Okay, there's another idea for you. But that has enormous appeal. If you can have a material that will heal itself, that's a big step. And so if you can write grant proposals which provide something that looks as though it's really innovative, you're likely to be successful. So that's what I would contribute.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank both of you, and let's give both of our guest lecturers a round of applause to thank them.